Goodness is stronger than evil. Love is stronger than hate. Light is stronger than darkness. Life is stronger than death. That's Desmond Tutu. When we are baptized, it is using an old trope. Down into the waters, back up again. Buried with Christ in his death and raised with him in his resurrection. But it's just not possible to be resurrected without something to be resurrected from. A literal death? Yes, I believe that. And I also believe that if we were only resurrected from that one death, far from now or whenever that happens to be, it might distract us from the crucial remainder of our baptismal work in this life. Turns out there's no other way to understand the transfiguration of Jesus. The glory of God, all this bright light, all these white garments that you hear about in this reading, they're a clue. Those who sat listening to the scroll of Matthew being read aloud in their home churches would have immediately understood this dynamic of life and death. But for us, it takes a minute to unpack. We hear that when he was transfigured, Jesus wore clothes of dazzling white. Mark says in his gospel that no human could have bleached those clothes such a color. We hear dazzling white and we think glory, innocence, purity. The people for whom Matthew was originally written would have heard dazzling white and thought of only one thing. And our word for that one thing in our language and in our time and place is martyrdom. Our hymnal and our Book of Common Prayer contain an ancient sung text called the Te Deum. That may well date from the 4th century. Sometimes we sing a loose translation of that hymn in a hymn called Holy God, We Praise Thy Name, which is a gorgeous rendering. It's just a list of who's out praising God today. What is out praising God today? And included on that list is the glorious choir of the apostles. Maybe, Eduardo, we might think about renaming the choir the glorious choir of the apostles. The wonderful company of prophets and the white-robed army of martyrs. White-robed army of martyrs. In the Revelation to John, we read of trouble for the churches, judgments being spilled out, terrible trials for those who love and claim Christ, but in the end, God wins, love wins. John says that he sees many thousands in his vision coming to worship God at last. And then someone, an elder, turns to John in the vision, and the elder says, "Who are these, robed in white, and where have they come from?" And John says, "You know, you tell me." The elder says, "These are they who have come out of the great ordeal. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, they are before the throne of God and worship him day and night within his temple, and the one who is seated on the throne will shelter them. They will hunger no more and thirst no more. The sun will not strike them, nor any scorching heat. And the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will guide them to springs of the water of life, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes." The army of the thousands of the white-robed martyrs. When I was baptized, of course, I wore a white robe. Most wear some variation of white at their baptism, even for little children, a neat suit or a pretty little dress. And the key is what's color there, not so much the style. But somewhere along the way, I think we got a little lost and confused. And we started to think that white meant pure. All stain of sin removed and banished, when it really meant martyr. It meant we follow a martyr, Jesus, whom we acclaim as Christ, a person who underwent state execution for being a rabble-rouser and a truth-teller. He died on what we call Good Friday for his cause. That's what martyrs do, and he was raised not long after by the power of God. That, in a nutshell, is the good news. So today, when Jesus is transfigured before his disciples, his clothes send a signal to the people around him, not about his purity or his innocence, but about his impending martyrdom. That, and of course, what lies on the other side of death. There's still something more there that he's cluing us into in his conversation with Elijah and Moses. The chief mystery of Jesus is that the presence of God, which dwells in timelessness and across all time, intercedes into the particular and becomes a person now, into the tangible, so that we can say, Emmanuel, God is with us. We're meant to understand this is not only for later, but also, please, absolutely, for now. The martyr dies now so that the martyr can live now in the perfect freedom of the gospel and the paradox of the cross, which Paul calls foolishness to shame the wise. So at this moment, on the Christian calendar, we stand with many others at the same place. We're on the edge of the season of Epiphany. Ahead of us, a vast wilderness called Lent. Today, a little later, we will put away the Alleluias for a while. Have you got a butterfly with you that I could just see real fast? Look at all those Alleluias. Give it a little twirl or a shake. Look at all those Alleluias shimmering. Thank you. We'll put those away at the conclusion of our service today, because that's what we do in Lent. We put away the Alleluias and we take on a different tone. On Tuesday, some will eat pancakes in that old tradition, which is about getting the sugar out of the pantry. And some will go outside into the cold, and they will burn the palms from Palm Sunday that have been collected up. And many will come back the next day, Ash Wednesday, and they will see how those palms, how those things that we waved in the air as we acclaimed Jesus, the Lord of all, as we processed him into Jerusalem those many months ago, into his passion, we will see how those very palms have become signs to us of our mortality, of our finitude, our smallness, our inability to stave off death. And the mark of our human nature will be written on our heads, unmistakably. Remember that you are dust, to dust you shall return. But we need to remember the cross is not finally about hopelessness. It's not about rending our garments and sitting in ashes. It's about Jesus. It's about the power of God to transform life and bring hope and light into situations of darkness, despair. Tuesday and Wednesday will throw us into the cold chasm of Lent, and we will submit to it, and we will be transformed by it, and we will also not be afraid of it. We will learn again that goodness is stronger than evil. Love is stronger than hate. Light is stronger than darkness, and life is stronger than death. I want you to spend some time between now and then doing some quiet reflection. I want you to ask God in your prayers, what part of me needs to die this Lent? Stand with the tension of the answers that come and pursue the ones that seem best. Cross of ashes marked onto your forehead on Wednesday will remind you that it is time for something to step aside. And it is time for something better and higher to take its place. Goodness, love, light, life. Amen.